What club was that at?
That was admit that a lot of people don't even realize they.
I've called her. She hasn't responded. I've called her more than a few times.
But the Zulu Nation, I'm like, what the hell is this? I know nobody know what I'm talking about. You'll leave me on the island by myself. I don't know what the hell Bishop's talking about. That's what y'all do. Then after class, yeah, I knew what you were talking about. I just don't want to be caught out there. The hell is this? Get on my damn nerves. So read that again, 31.
Hey, Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ bless. Welcome to another edition of What Christianity Never Taught You. This is a new series that will be brought to you by the captains of Israel United in Christ. I'm your teacher for today, Captain Zephaniah, and to my right,
Soldier Kushaya.
And today's topic is the real Gentiles are. Who are the real Gentiles according to the scriptures? We're going to go over a few scriptures, and hopefully by the end of the class, you'll be fully edified to who the real Gentiles are. All right, this is a doctrine that has stumbled our people in the Christian church. So hopefully, this series and this episode will help get our people out of the Christian church and into the truth of who they are according to the Bible. Let's open up with John chapter 8, verse 32.
This is the book of John, chapter 8 and verse 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
So the scriptures tells you, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So that's what we're trying to do today. Make our people free from Christianity. Christianity is not found in the scriptures. What you're going to find in the scriptures is that the true Israelites, the real Israelites, are who the world today calls the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Give me Psalms 111 and verse 10. All right, this is a reason why a lot of our people in Christianity, they don't understand the Bible. All right, read.
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 111 and verse 10.
Uh-huh.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
Our people don't have a fear of the Lord. What they have a fear of is white man Jesus. That's what our people have a fear of. So read that again.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Read.
A good understanding have all they that do his commandments.
A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. So this is what we're lacking in the Christian church and the black community, the Hispanic community, the Native American community, is keeping God's commandments. That's the light bulb that should pop up in our head of what we've been missing in our lives, all right? Once we add these scriptures, these commandments to our lives, everything is going to change, all right? Give me the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, and let's open up with the definition of Gentiles, all right? I remember when I was a young boy, they had a program on TV. It was called Reading is Fundamental, all right? We have to get back to the fundamentals of reading for ourselves, not taking every word that the pastors in the church say for truth, all right? Don't take my words for truth. Take God's words for truth, all right? And the truth, Lord's will make you free. So let's read that.
This is the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, page 195, the definition of Gentiles.
Read.
Usually, it means a non-Israelite people.
So read that again.
Usually, it means a non-Israelite people.
So the definition in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, right, says usually. That means sometimes it refers to a non-Israelite people. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Read it again.
Usually, it means a non-Israelite people.
And next to it, does it have synonyms of what the word Gentiles means?
Gentiles, nation, people.
So the word Gentiles is a Latin word which means nations, which means people, all right? And usually it means a non-Israelite people. So that right there is the clue that when you see the word Gentiles in the Bible, sometimes it's referring to the Israelites and sometimes it's referring to the other nations, all right, that are not the Israelites. So let's begin with Genesis chapter 10, verse 1 through 5. Let's see who the real Gentiles are according to the scriptures.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 1.
Uh-huh.
Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah,
Uh-huh.
Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood.
Read.
The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Havan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Rephath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elishah, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim.
Read.
By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided.
The isles of who?
The Gentiles divided.
So this is the first time that the Bible refers to the other nations outside of Israel as the Gentiles, which means nations. Read that again.
By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands.
Uh-huh.
Every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations.
In their nations. So these nations that was referred to here, okay, those are the real Gentiles. We have Javan and Tubal and Meshach and Tyrus, so on and so forth. So this is the first time that the scriptures is talking about the Gentiles. Give me 1 Ezra chapter 8, verse 69. So we're giving you the scriptures that refer to the other nations outside of Israel as the Gentiles.
This is the book of 1 Ezra, chapter 8, in the Apocrypha, verse 69.
Uh-huh.
The nation of Israel, the princes, the priests, and Levites have not put away from them the strange people of the land, nor the pollutions of the Gentiles.
Read that again.
The nation of Israel.
So this is the nation of Israel. Read.
The princes, the priests, and Levites have not put away from them the strange people of the land.
So Israel did not put away the strange people of the land. All right. The other nations. Let's see who those strange people of the land were.
Nor the pollutions of the Gentiles.
So those Gentiles, other nations, were called strangers, right? That Israel didn't put away, meaning we mingled with them. We took on their customs. All right. Read.
To wit, of the Canaanites.
The who?
The Canaanites.
Africans. Read.
The Hittites.
Africans.
The Pharisaites.
Uh-huh.
Jebusites. And the Moabites.
So those were African nations, and the Moabites, which are the Chinese, okay? The Moabites would be the so-called Chinese today. Read.
Egyptians.
More Africans.
And Edomites.
And the Edomites, the so-called white man, his true name is Edomites, or in the scriptures also it calls them Esau. So what are we reading? The real Gentiles. The real Gentiles are who? The other nations. But now the definition said usually a non-Israelite people. So now we're going to read the history of why Israel was referred to as the Gentiles. Let's read that history in 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 6. And we're going to read to verse 9.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 6.
Uh-huh.
Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
So this is during the Greek captivity. And where we're reading from the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha was taken out of today's Bible. Most of us, we don't have the Apocrypha in our Bibles. Why? Because the Apocrypha has a lot of the Greek history, all right? When you read the regular Bible, it goes from the Assyrian captivity and it jumps to the Roman captivity. So what's missing? The Greek captivity, all right? That you find in the Apocrypha, in the book of the Maccabees, all right? So let's read.
Verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
And in the day...
Read verse 6 again.
Yes, sir. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days.
So that was a custom of the Israelites to keep the Sabbath. It wasn't lawful for us to keep that in the Greek captivity. Read.
Or ancient feasts.
Or any of our high holy days. It was unlawful for us to keep it during the Greek captivity. Read.
Or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
We couldn't even call ourselves Jews. We couldn't even call ourselves Israelites. It was unlawful against the law. Like today, if you go to your job, you're filling out a job application and you put Israelite or Jew, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. You will not get the job. Why? Because we are not known as the Israelites today. And this is the history of how it started. All right. It was unlawful for us to be called Jews, to profess to be called Jews. Read.
And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were bought by bitter constraint.
By what?
By bitter constraint.
Meaning we were forced to celebrate the king's birthday. But now what? We keep that as a custom. All right. Birthdays, Christmases, Easter, what else? Valentine's Day. All right. Thanksgiving. All these heathen Gentile customs, we keep it like it's our own. Why? Because it was against the law for us to keep our own feast days. Read.
And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were bought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy.
So they forced us to keep the feast of Bacchus. And now today in Trinidad, you have a feast or a custom called Bacchanal, the carnival of Bacchanal, which is an ode to the god Bacchus, all right, the god of wine and revelry, meaning wine and whoredom, okay? This we took it as our own custom, and it's evident in our people to this day. Many of the people in the Caribbean keep that custom of Bacchanal, all right? You have Juve, which is another Greek custom that we keep like it's our own, all right? Read.
Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities.
Meaning a law to the neighboring cities. Read.
Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen.
Of the who?
Of the heathen.
Other nations. That word heathen translates to other nations, or nations. Okay, nations. Read.
By the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews.
Against who?
The Jews.
So a law went out to the neighboring nations against the Jews. What was the law that went out? The decree. Read.
That they should observe the same fashions.
That we should observe the same fashions. Meaning we can't keep our fashions, our customs. We have to keep the customs of who? Here, the Greeks, because Ptolemy was the king of the Greeks. All right, read.
And be partakers of their sacrifices.
Be partakers of their sacrifices. All right, the sacrifices that they had to Bacchus, all right, to the other gods that they had, like Hercules and all these other wicked feast days, we had to keep it like if it was our own. Why? Because it was a law. Let's see how far they went to have us keep those wicked customs. Read.
And whoso would not conform themselves.
If we wouldn't conform ourselves, meaning change our ways to their ways. Read.
To the manners of the Gentiles.
To the who?
To the manners of the Gentiles.
To the real Gentiles, which are the other nations outside of Israel. Read.
Should be put to death.
We would be put to death. Could you imagine? You can't keep the Sabbath. You can't keep Passover. You can't keep Feast of Dedication under fear of death. And believe it or not, brothers and sisters, those days will be back on this earth. All right? You have the Christianity religion merging with the Muslim religion and the Jewish religion, all right, to make one world religion. And who do you think they're going to go against when we start keeping our feast days? Because Israel is not small no more. We're being noticed, and they see us keeping the feast days. They see that we don't work on the Sabbath, okay, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. They see us with our fringes. They're going to persecute us as they did in these days now, before Christ returns, all right? So prepare yourselves, brothers and sisters. Read that again.
And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death.
So many of our ancestors, many of our forefathers were put to death. Why? For keeping God's high holy days and not following the customs of the other nations. Read.
And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles
of the nations, read,
should be put to death.
Uh-huh.
Then might a man have seen the present misery.
Then might a man have seen the present misery. We saw the misery, the destruction of our nation, all right, the Israelites. Now we couldn't call ourselves Israelites. We couldn't call ourselves Jews. We had to go by the what? Greeks, all right? We had to be called by whatever nation we were under captivity. This is how we began to be called Gentiles. Now, many of our people in the church, we think we're the Gentiles. That's a half-truth, all right? Why? Because the real Gentiles are the other nations. The Bible dictionary tells you, usually a non-Israelite people. Why? Because in the scriptures, the northern kingdom of Israel, when they separated, we're going to go into that history as well, all right, were called the Gentiles. It was the Jews and the Gentiles, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom of Israel, all right? Let's read the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 4 and verse 7. All right, let's see more of the history of how we assimilated ourselves, all right, into the Greek customs and no longer called ourselves Jews, no longer followed the high holy days of the Most High. Read.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 4, verse 7.
But
after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus, called Epiphanes, took the kingdom.
So this is another Greek ruler over Israel, all right? Epiphanes, right? Called Epiphanes, which means God manifested on earth, all right? He boasted himself as a God manifested on earth. He was the Greek ruler at the time. Read.
Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest.
So this Jason, right, labored underhanded to be the high priest, meaning he wasn't supposed to be appointed high priest over Israel. But he what? He connived his way. He tricked his way, underhanded his way into the priesthood. Read.
Promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents.
So he paid his way to get the high priesthood. All right. Similar today, you got these pastors, all right, like Creflo Dollar, T.D. Jakes, who they have connections with the president, with governments, right? They pay their way to be what? Top tier Christian pastors misguiding the flock. All right. The same way as Jason, we have those spirits till this day. All right. That's why you have the bishop teaching every shout out Tuesday, casting down these wicked imaginations. All right. And now we're following the 4 steps of our teacher, our leader here on earth, Bishop Nathaniel, the prophet Bishop Nathaniel, and we casting down the imaginations with this new series. Okay, what Christianity never taught you. Read.
Beside this, he promised to assign 150 more, if he might have license to set him up a place for exercise.
So he paid his way to have what? License for a place of exercise. Read.
And for the training up of youth in the fashions of the heathen.
In the what?
Fashions of the heathen.
In the customs of the nations. So he paid his way to have his people, the young men, converted to the fashion of the other nations. All right, let's see what fashion he converted them to. Read.
And to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians.
To write them of Jerusalem by who?
The name of Antiochians.
So they were called Antiochians, meaning like today we're called Americans, right? We don't call ourselves Israelites or Jews. We're Americans. We call ourselves Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, all right, Brazilians. All these names besides what God called you. It started during the Greek captivity. It started way before that, but we're seeing it during the Greek captivity. All right, they were called Antiochians. Read.
Which, when the king had granted, and he had gotten into his hand the rule.
So he gave him the permission to set up a place of exercise. Read.
He forthwith brought his own nation.
The Israelites, that was Jason's nation. Read.
To the Greekish fashion.
To the what?
Greekish fashion.
Why? Because it was a law that it was unlawful to keep the customs, the high holy days of the Israelites. So he brought his people to the Greekish fashion. Let's see what fashion that was.
And the royal privileges granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid, he took away, and putting down the governments which were according to the law, he brought up new customs against the law.
New customs against the law. So these wicked men had the Jews, the Israelites, keeping new customs against the laws of God, against the fashion of Israel. Read.
For he built gladly a place of exercise.
So he didn't do it by bitter constraint like we read in 2 Maccabees 6. He didn't do it, he wasn't forced to do it. He gladly did it. This is called a traitor. Treason against his people. Why? For that filthy lucre, like many of these so-called pastors today. They do things gladly for that filthy lucre. Read.
For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men.
The what?
The chief young men.
Read.
Under his subjection, and made them wear a hat.
He made them wear a hat. What hat is that? The hat of Hermes. All right? Hermes was that was the god, one of the Greek gods of the Greeks. All right? Hermes, who was known for like being fast, for speed. Okay? Today they pattern Hermes, they pattern Flash. The superhero Flash is patterned after the Greek god Hermes. So that was the fashion back then. The young men wore that hat, all right, in honor of the Greek god Hermes. Read.
Now such was the height of Greek fashion.
You see? That was the height of Greek fashion. Read.
And
like today, what's the fashion that our people wear today? Men wearing skirts now is a new fashion on the earth, all right? Skinny jeans with their butts out. That's the new fashion that our people keep. But do they wear their fringes? Do they wear their garments like the Israelite fashion is supposed to? No. Why? Because of what happened during the Greek captivity. All right. The young men were taken, and they were made to keep the fashion of the other nations. All right. This is how we began to be called Gentiles, because we didn't call ourselves Jews anymore. Read.
Now such was the height of Greek fashions. An increase of heathenish manners.
You see that? An increase, meaning it was growing in popularity. An increase of heathenish manners, meaning the manners, the fashion, the customs of the other nations. Read.
And an increase of heathenish manners through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch.
See what the Most High called him? An ungodly wretch. Why? Because he sold his people out. Read.
And no high priest.
He was not the high priest. He underhandedly took the high priesthood. All right. He paid his way. He bribed his way into the priesthood. For what? For filthy lucre, so that he can set up a place of exercise and train the young men away from the Israelite customs into the Greekish fashion, the heathenish manners. Read.
That the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar.
They gave up the spirit. They had no courage to serve the Most High anymore. Now they were what? Serving Greek gods, false gods, idolatry. They were sacrificing to false gods. Read.
But despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise.
So they hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance. Read that again.
Hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise.
You see, the unlawful allowance, meaning they were allowed to keep this unlawful custom. Why? Because in this place of exercise, it was called the gymnasium. If you look up that word gymnasium, it means place of naked exercise. All right. These Greeks, they would practice sports in the nude. All right. And they had our people doing that. Okay. Our people, when you look at the history, they hastened so much to be partakers of this Greek fashion that they put the foreskin of animals on their circumcised rods so that they can look like the other nations, the Greeks. All right, that's how far they went to be partakers of this unlawful fashion. Read.
After the game of discus, called them forth.
You see that? The game of discus. That was the popular sport of the time. Our people, they didn't want to be priests. They didn't want to serve God in the temple. Now they wanted to be throwing disc in the nude with the hat of Hermes on their head. Read.
Not setting by the honors of their fathers.
So they put the honors of their fathers aside. What was the honors of our fathers? The laws of God. Okay, the high holy days, the Sabbaths, the new moons, the feast days, the whole high holy days. Read.
But liking the glory of the Grecians best of all.
That's like today. They look at us as something odd. All right, why? Because they liken the glory of the other nations best of all. All right, read.
By reason whereof sore calamity came upon them. For they had them to be their enemies and avengers.
Read.
Whose customs they follow so earnest. Whose custom they followed so earnestly.
So we followed the customs of the Greeks so earnestly. Read.
And unto whom they desired to be like in all things.
In all things, even looking uncircumcised, even uncircumcising our children, undressing naked in a place of exercises, playing discus, worshiping false gods like Hermes and Hercules, okay, Zeus, all these false gods. So this is the beginning, or this is an example of how we became to be called the Gentiles, because it was unlawful to be called a Jew. It was unlawful to follow the fashions, the customs of Israel. All right. So give me verse 19.
Verse 19. This ungracious Jason sent special messengers to Jerusalem who were Antiochians.
Who were what?
Antiochians.
You see that? They were called Antiochians. They weren't called Israelites or Jews. They were now called Antiochians, or what? Citizens of Antiochia. Read.
To carry 300 drachms of silver to the sacrifice of Hercules.
To the sacrifice of who?
Hercules.
Another Greek god. So our people left the customs of Israel to sacrifice to Hercules, a false god, something that doesn't exist, has no power. All right? That was the fashion that our people were following. Was there more?
Yes, sir. Which even the bearers thereof thought fit not to bestow upon the sacrifice, because it was not convenient, but to be reserved for other charges.
So they didn't even give the sacrifice to Hercules. Why? Because they knew that was a false god, that it served a better purpose. All right. So all these lies and misguidings that our people followed, it was all for nothing. All right. So that was just an example, so you can see how we became like the Gentiles. That's why the scripture says usually a non-Israelite people, or excuse me, the Bible dictionary says usually a non-Israelite people. But most of the times when you read Gentiles, it's talking about Israel. And we're going to continue on with the lesson, and you're going to learn how. Give me Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. Deuteronomy chapter 28 is the foundation for a lot of how we teach our people. Why? Because the curses are for a sign and for a wonder. All right, so we're going to read a couple of the curses that befall our people and how we became to be called what? Gentiles. Read, start at verse 15 and then go to 37.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So if we neglect God's commandments, all right, to obey God's words, all these curses shall come upon us and overtake us. So let's see one of the curses that overtook us. Read verse 37.
Verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment.
What?
An astonishment.
How are we an astonishment today? Because we are no longer called Israelites. Now they call us blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. Read.
A proverb.
A what?
A proverb.
A proverb is being called outside of your God-given given name. Like what? Blacks, African American, Negro, Hispanic, Dominican, Puerto Rican. It's hundreds and hundreds of bywords, proverbs that they call our people. Read.
And a byword.
That's,
among-
excuse me. A byword is being called out of your God-given name. A proverb is what they are sayings that they have of our people. Like, what do they say about blacks? They're lazy, incompetent, dumb. Okay, what do they say about Hispanics? Wetbacks. Dominicans don't wear socks. What do you call a black man in a three-piece suit? Will the defendant please rise? These are proverbs against our people. Puerto Ricans carry knives. All right. This is all part of the curses. Being called spick, wetback, nigger. That's part of the curses. Not being called Israel is part of the curses. Not being allowed to put Israelite in on your birth certificate as your nation. All right. Read.
And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations.
Among who?
All nations.
Read.
Whither the Lord shall lead thee.
So wherever the Israelites are, we shall be called a byword, a proverb and a byword. So this is how we began to be calling ourselves what? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It is a curse to be called that. Why? Because God named you Israel.
And the Lord shall scatter thee.
The Lord shall what?
Scatter thee
Uh-huh.
among all people.
Among who?
All people.
What is that called today? Assimilation. He scattered us amongst all people. So naturally, we went away from keeping God's commandments and we assimilated ourselves. Why? Because we were scattered among the nations for disobeying God's commandments. Read.
From the one end of the earth even unto the other.
Uh-huh.
And there thou shalt serve other gods.
We showed you an example serving other gods like Hermes, Hercules, all right? These were other gods that we served for disobeying God's commandments. All right, read.
Which neither thou nor thy fathers have known.
We didn't know these gods until what? Captivity, disobedience to God's commandments. Read.
Even wood and stone.
Today, what wood God we serve now? Christianity, the white Jesus, the white image of Jesus. The stone, what stone gods we serve now? Allah, Buddha, all right? In Mecca, in what do you call that? In Arabia, right? They worship a meteor. They do pilgrimages. They do hajjs around Mecca, around a meteor, all right? A stone. Gods of wood and stone that neither our fathers knew. All right? Give me verse 68.
Verse 68.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
The Lord shall bring us into Egypt, meaning captivity. When you read Exodus 20, verse 2, that word Egypt translates to what? Captivity. Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
With what?
With ships.
Who did this happen to? You brothers and sisters in Christianity. Ask your pastors, who does this verse specifically fit? Is you so-called blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans. But now some of you are going to say, oh, the Hispanics never went into captivity. They're not Israel, because that's the new thing now. People that know that they're Israel, there's a division between the blacks and Hispanics. Who's the Israelites and who's not the Israelites? Let's see if history books coincide with what we just read. Read that again.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
With what?
With ships.
So let's see who this, did it only happen to the so-called blacks or did it happen to the Hispanics again? We have this book. It's called A Hidden Heritage, Black Indians by William Loren Katz. Give me page 26 and start where it says it began with Columbus.
This is Black Indians, page 26.
Uh-huh.
For the people of the Americas, the arrival of Columbus was hardly a blessing.
So it wasn't a blessing when Columbus arrived to the Americas, all right? Read.
On his first day, October 12th, 1492,
Uh-huh.
the explorer wrote in his diary, I took some of the natives by force.
What? Read it again.
I took some of the natives by force.
So this is Columbus in his own words. He took some of the natives by force. By force. Okay? Columbus didn't discover a damn thing. There was already people here. The Israelites were already here. And you can read that history in 2nd Esdras chapter 13. All right? Read.
He later found the original inhabitants
Uh-huh.
to be tractable.
To be what?
Tractable.
Read.
Peaceable.
Peaceable. Read.
And concluded there is not in the world a better nation.
Read.
His response as a European was to say that Indians must be, in quote, made to work.
Made to what?
Made to work.
Meaning forced to work as what? Slaves. Columbus took the Indians, the so-called Native Americans and Hispanics as slaves. Read.
Must be, in quote, made to work and adopt our ways.
And what?
Adopt our ways.
Gentile customs. Adopt the ways of the so-called white man, the Europeans. Read.
The Christopher Columbus, whose unique seamanship and courage had opened the Americas to European penetration, also began the transatlantic slave trade.
He began what?
The transatlantic slave trade.
The transatlantic slave trade, whom most of us know in history happened to the so-called blacks. But let's continue reading.
He started by shipping 10 chained Arawak men and women.
Chained who?
Arawak men and women.
10 chained, meaning bondage, as slaves, Arawak men and women. Read.
To Seville, Spain.
To where?
Seville, Spain.
To Seville, Spain. How do you think they got to Seville, Spain, these 10 Arawak men and women? We just read it in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. By ships, slave ships. Read.
He wrote enthusiastically to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella about the business possibilities.
Read.
From here, in the name of the blessed Trinity, we can send all the slaves.
All the what?
The slaves.
You see what he made our people? He made us slaves. Read.
That can be sold.
That can be what?
Sold.
Sold as slaves. Read.
When he loaded 1,100 Taino men and women.
Oh, so it's not just blacks. It's not just the Arawaks. It was who?
Taino men and women.
Read that number again.
1,100 Taino men and women.
So he started with 1,100 Taino men and women. Who are those Tainos today? The so-called Hispanics. Mainly the what? The Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, the Dominicans that were on the island when Christopher Columbus, the conquistador, which means conqueror, came to this side of the earth, to the Caribbean. Read.
When he loaded 1,100 Taino men and women aboard 4 Spanish ships.
Aboard what?
4 Spanish ships.
4 Spanish slave ships. Read.
The crowding and the stormy Atlantic crossing took a fearful toll. Only 300 survived.
Only 300 of our people survived that first voyage in a slave ship. Okay, read.
But Columbus and Spain had decided to continue the profitable slave trade.
So even though the majority of those people died on that voyage, they decided to continue. Why? Because of greed, because of hatred, because they knew that what? That we weren't keeping God's commandments, so we were under the curses. Believe it or not, Christopher Columbus read the Bible. He knew that our people was here already. It wasn't by accident, by happenstance, all right?
Why do you wish to sail west?
To open a new route to Asia. Asia is the richest kingdom, the land of spices and gold. At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent. The journey takes a year. Or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians. There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea.
The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite.
Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands.
How can you be so certain?
The calculations of Toscanelli, Marin de Tir, Esdras.
Esdras is a Jew.
So what's worse?
2 minutes, and already you're a dead man.
For telling the truth?
Yes. We are burning people for less. The men you're about to confront have no emotion.
Fluke that he got on this side of the earth, he knew there were people here. He read the book of 2nd Esdras. All right, read.
Columbus and Spain had decided to continue the profitable slave trade from the Americas. Seville became the slave capital of Spain.
Seville in Spain became the slave capital. Who was being sold and bought in those in that slave capital? The Israelites. All right? You're reading the history of our people. So it wasn't just so-called blacks. So that dispels that rumor, that myth that the Hispanics, the Puerto Ricans, the Dominicans, the Cubans, the Mexicans are not Israelites. All right? Why? Because we fall under the curses as well. Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Into bondage again.
With ships.
With what?
With ships.
Slave ships. Slave ships. There's no other ships that happened in the slave trade, all right? We didn't come here by plane, all right? We didn't stamp a passport to come over here. We were forced, all right? Beginning with Columbus, forced us on slave ships. Read.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee.
The same way God told Moses it was going to happen is exactly how it happened to us. History documents it. History proves it. The history books tell you. Read.
Thou shalt see it no more again.
We shall not see Israel no more again. Read.
And there ye shall be sold.
You shall be what?
You shall be sold unto your enemies.
Unto who?
Your enemies.
You see, Christians, we have enemies. God is not here to save everyone. He's here to save Israel from our enemies. You can read that in Luke chapter 1, verse 68. All right? Our enemies, not our friends, sold us into captivity, slavery. Read.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. And no man shall buy you.
And no man shall buy you. No man shall save you. That's a old Quaker word, which means save. No man shall save you. The only one that can save us, redeem us from these curses is the black Messiah, Jesus Christ. All right? Give me Isaiah chapter 22 and verse 18. All right? So that you can see how the Israelites came to be scattered. All right? We were scattered aboard slave ships into what? The other nations. Isaiah chapter 22, verse 18.
Isaiah chapter 22, verse 18. He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country.
Read that again.
He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country.
So there, the prophet Isaiah is describing how we would be scattered or brought by into slave ships, right? And tossed into other countries like it says, violently turned and tossed. That's why when Columbus boarded 1,100 Tainos onto the slave ships, only 300 survived. Why? Because it was a violent voyage. When them currents are tossing and turning the ship, what do you think our people, they were tightly packed. Why? Because he wanted to fit as many as possible to be sold in Seville as slaves. Right? They didn't care about your comfort. It wasn't comfort plus. It wasn't more leg room for you. No, you were on top of one another, sometimes throwing up, sometimes defecating on one another, our women menstruating, okay? All these things were occurring while we were on these slave ships. So read that again.
He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country.
Into a large country, North America, South America. All right, this is how we came on this side of the earth. Like Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64 said, scattered among the nations. All right, read.
There shalt thou die, and there the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of thy Lord's house.
So it was a shame now, all right? We weren't a glorious nation anymore, okay? We were violently tossed into a large country. For what? For disobeying God's commandments. And now we're amongst the nations, living as the other nations, calling ourselves by heathenish names, all right? American, Europeans, Brazilian, Dominicans, Puerto Rican, or everything besides what God named us. Okay, give me the book of 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 41. Let's see more history of how we assimilated ourselves and no longer called ourselves Jews or Israelites, but came to be known as the other nations, the Gentiles. Because that, don't forget the topic. The topic is the real Gentiles are. So we started the class by showing you who the real Gentiles are, which is the other nations. And then we went into the Bible dictionary that tells you when you read Gentiles in the Bible, usually it means a non-Israelite people. But sometimes it means the Israelites. Okay, read.
The book of 1 Maccabees chapter 1 verse 41.
Yes.
Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
That all should be what?
One people.
One people. One world government. All right? One world government. Like America is what? Considered the ruler of the free world. Everybody follows tries to follow democracy. Okay, if you become what they call a socialist country or a communist country, you get sanctioned, you get ostracized. All right, you can no longer trade, buy, or sell with the other countries, other nations. Why? Because you have to follow the customs of America, the doctrines of America. So read that again.
Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
That all nations should be one people. Read.
And everyone should leave his laws.
Should leave what?
His laws.
Should leave his laws and follow the laws of who? The Greeks in this instance. Read.
So all the heathen agreed.
All the nations agreed. Read.
According to the commandment of the king.
The king Antiochus, the Greek king, all right, who was ruler at that time. All the nations agreed to follow this new law. Read.
Yea, many also of the Israelites,
even many of the Israelites,
consented to his religion.
Consented to what?
His religion.
His religion. Like today, we consent to what? Christianity, which is a religion of what? The so-called white man. The Europeans. When Columbus set foot here in the Caribbean, what did he bring? He brought Christianity. All right, under persecution, we were forced to follow what? White Jesus, and now we gladly do it. We gladly believe in a false god, a white Jesus with blonde hair and blue eyes. All right, why? Because it was forced upon us. Read.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols.
They did what?
Sacrifice unto idols. And profaned the Sabbath.
They desecrated, they profaned, okay? They didn't keep the Sabbath. They profaned it. When you don't keep the Sabbath, you're profaning it. All right, why? Because it's a high holy day separated from the other days. It's a special day. So the Israelites, they profaned the Lord's Sabbath and consented to the new religion of the Greeks. Read.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws.
The what?
The strange laws.
You see, it was called strange laws because it wasn't a custom of the Israelites to be following false religions, worshiping false idols. Read.
That they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings.
They forbid us from burning from the burnt offerings to the Most High God. Read.
And sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple.
In the temple of the Most High. Read.
And that they should profane the Sabbaths.
They should what?
Profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
Same as today. We can't get a day off from work to keep the high holy days or the Passover day. We have to say, oh, I'm sick. Or I don't feel well today. I'm not coming in. But why? Why? Because we it's against the law. It's not a law for us to keep the Sabbaths or the high holy days. And sooner than later, you're going to see that they're going to persecute us for keeping God's Sabbaths. Many of us on our jobs, they don't allow us to keep the Sabbath, take Saturday off. They force us to work. They force us to profane God's laws. All right, read.
And pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves.
Set up altars and groves. What is that called today? The churches, the Christian churches. They set up altars and groves. Read.
And chapels of idols.
And what?
Chapels of idols.
Like the Catholic Church, you have many idols. All right, you have the Virgin Mary, you have the white Jesus, you have the false saints. Because when you read the scriptures, right, the saints are the Israelites. But in the Catholic Church, you have false saints that they worship, like Saint Patrick. All right, what day is that? March. In March, they celebrate Saint Patrick's. And now what do our people do? They dress up in green and they get drunk on that day in honor of Saint Patrick. Saint Valentine's, exactly. Following the customs of the other nations. Read.
And pollute the sanctuary.
And what?
Pollute the sanctuary and holy people. And set up altars and groves and chapels of idols. And sacrifice swine's flesh.
And they sacrifice swine's flesh. Why? Because it's against us as the Israelites. It's against the law to eat swine's flesh, meaning pork. But now here in America, okay, you have pork bacon on everything. They even put bacon on ice cream now, bacon on your hamburgers. Okay, there's nothing that when you go to the restaurant, you have to tell them no bacon because the beans have bacon, the potatoes, the mashed potatoes have bacon. Everything is bacon bits. Why? Because they want to keep us in sin. That's the secret agenda against the Israelites. All right? Read.
And unclean beasts. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised.
You see that? Why? Because it's a covenant between us and the Most High. That's what circumcision represents, the covenant between us and the Most High. So now the Greeks, they said it's against the law for us to circumcise our children. The same thing as today. Now you have to bring a letter, all right? You have to petition in order for the doctors to circumcise our children. Read.
And make their souls abominable.
And make what?
Their souls abominable.
With what?
With all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
The sacrificing against to idols, all right? All manner of profanation, profane things. Read.
To the end, they might forget the law.
To the end what?
They might forget the law.
That was the purpose of all these laws that the Greek King Antiochus passed, that we might forget to keep God's laws, to keep us in sin. Because believe it or not, the enemies, the other nations know as long as they keep the Israelites in sin, they will continue to rule. All right? But once we come together as a nation, as the Israelites, and start keeping God's commandments, the Most High will defend us. But we have to return back to our customs, our laws, statutes, and commandments, and worship the one true God, which is the black God and the black Messiah, Jesus Christ. All right, read.
To the end, they might forget the law and change all the ordinances.
And change what?
All the ordinances.
That's what they wanted, to change all the ordinances. Read.
And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die.
He should what?
He should die.
So we were forced with what? These Greek fashions, these sacrificing unto false gods, worshiping false gods. All right, but now we do it of our own free will, and we think is normal. We think is part of our custom to what? To worship a white Jesus, to go to church on Sundays, profaning God's Sabbath, which is the true high holy day of the Most High. All these things, what? To keep us in Gentile customs. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11 now. Who are the Gentiles? Remember, the Bible dictionary tells us usually a non-Israelite people. But let's read Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11.
This is the book of Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. Wherefore, remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh.
Ye being what?
In time past, Gentiles in the flesh.
So we were called Gentiles in the flesh. Why? Because we were no longer keeping God's customs. We were no longer calling ourselves the Israelites. Now we were called the Gentiles. We were called, today we call ourselves American, just to put it in perspective. All right? We don't call ourselves Israel. We don't call ourselves by our tribe names. We call ourselves American, African American, Hispanic, Latin American. Okay? Read that again.
Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision.
So now read that again.
Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision.
We were called uncircumcision by who?
By that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands.
So the circumcision is referring to who? The southern kingdom, who were keeping God's laws. All right. They called the northern kingdom the uncircumcision. Why? Because we assimilated ourselves. We separated ourselves from Jerusalem. Okay. And we decided to what? Follow the customs of the other nations. And we went into captivity. Okay. So now let's see the history on how this began. Give me the book of 1 Kings, chapter 12 and verse 13.
1 Kings, chapter 12, verse 13. And the king answered the people roughly and forsook the old men's counsel.
Read verse 12, verse 12.
Verse 12. 1 Kings, chapter 12, verse 12. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had appointed, saying, come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people roughly.
So Rehoboam, which was Solomon's son, right, who was the king at this time, the king of Israel at this time, Jeroboam petitioned to him. Read.
And forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy.
So he's talking about Solomon, King Solomon. He said, my father made your yoke heavy. Read.
and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions.
So he said he was going to be more rough to who? The Israelites, rougher than what his father was. He was going to impose more taxes, all right? Be harder on the people than his father was. Read.
Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people.
He didn't hearken. He didn't listen to the voice of the people. Read.
For the cause was from the Lord.
The cause was from who?
The Lord.
From the Most High. And we're going to understand why later on. Read.
That he might perform his saying, which the Lord spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Verse 16. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David?
So Jeroboam, right, who the people set up, the 10 tribes of Israel, the northern kingdom set up as their ruler. Why? Because Rehoboam, King Solomon's son, who was the king at this time, did not hearken to the voice of the people. He decided to be rough. So they said, read that again.
What portion have we in David?
So they said, what portion have we in David with the southern kingdom, the house of Judah? Read.
Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse.
We don't have an inheritance with the son of Jesse, which is who? King David, King Solomon. Read.
To your tents, O Israel.
So they said, to your tents. Let's get out of here. To your tents, O Israel. Read.
Now see to thine own house, David. So Israel departed unto their tents.
So this right here, what we're reading, is the beginning of the separation of the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. All right? Give me 2 Kings chapter 15, verse 27. So the northern kingdom, right, separated from the southern kingdom. That's who Jeroboam took with him, the northern kingdom of Israel. 10 tribes of the nation of Israel. Read.
The book of 2 Kings chapter 15, verse 27.
Let me get it. Yeah, read.
In the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 20 years.
Read.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat.
So read verse 27 again.
In the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel in Samaria.
So this was the new ruler who took over for who was it? Jeroboam, right? Read.
And reigned 20 years.
So he reigned over Israel, over the northern kingdom, 20 years. Read.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord.
So he didn't keep the customs. He didn't keep the high holy days. He decided to keep sacrifice unto idols. All right. They weren't. Why? Because they didn't have a high priest at that time. Read.
He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat.
So Jeroboam was doing the same thing. He drove the people to sin against the Most High. Read.
Who made Israel to sin. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria.
So Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, what did he do? Let's see.
And took Ijon and Abel Meth-Makkah and Genoa and Kadesh and Hazor and Gilead and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. So
this is the northern kingdom being displaced, all right, by who? Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria. Why? Because we disobeyed God. Jeroboam and Remaliah, the kings of the northern kingdom, they weren't sacrificing to God. They were keeping what? They were sacrificing to idols. They weren't keeping the laws of the Most High. So the Most High displaced the northern kingdom. But all of this was of the Most High. We're going to continue reading. Give me Isaiah chapter 7, start at verse 1. All right. Remember what we read in 1 Kings 12, right? I'm going to read it again. 1 Kings 12, verse 15. Read that again.
1 Kings chapter 12, verse 15. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord.
So that division was from the Lord. Why? Because there had to be a separation. Because the Most High wanted what? As we read, we're going to read further on in the scriptures that what? Jesus Christ, the black Messiah, had to die in order to what? Reunify the people. Why? Because there was too much sin going on in Israel. All right. The sacrifices that we were sacrificing to God for our sins was not suffice. Now Jesus Christ had to send his son Jesus Christ to die for the people. But there had to be a division in order for that to happen, a division amongst the nation. So now we have Southern Kingdom and Northern Kingdom. And now we read the displacement of the Northern Kingdom by the king of Assyria. Why? Because we were wicked as hell. The same today. That's why we continue to be displaced. That's why we continue to be at the bottom of society for breaking God's commandments. Give me Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 1.
The book of Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up toward Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it.
Read.
And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim.
So the Northern Kingdom, Syria was confederate with the Northern Kingdom. All right, read.
And his heart was moved, and the heart of his people, as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind.
So the division was so strong amongst the Southern Kingdom and Northern Kingdom that the Northern Kingdom was confederate with Syria to go against what? The Southern Kingdom, to go against their brethren. All right? Read.
Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou, and shear Jeshab, thy son, and the end of the conduit of the upper pool, in the highway of the fuller's field.
Read.
And say unto him, Take heed and be quiet. Fear not, neither be faint-hearted for the two tails of these smoking firebands.
He's talking about Syria and Ephraim, the Northern Kingdom. Read.
For the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and the son of Remaliah. Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let's go up against Judah and vex it.
You see that? The Northern Kingdom went up against Judah, the Southern Kingdom to vex it. Read.
And let us make a breach therein for us.
A separation. Read.
And set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabeal.
Read.
Thus saith the Lord God, it shall not stand.
It shall not what?
It shall not stand.
Read.
Neither shall it come to pass.
Read.
For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken.
You see? Read that again.
And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken. That it be not a people.
That it be what?
Not a people.
Ephraim was broken for the wickedness that they were doing, sacrificing to idols, going against their brothers, the Southern Kingdom. It was broken by the hand of the Most High that they were not a people, as it is to this day. Now you have all 12 tribes that are not a people. Why? Because we go by Gentile names, Gentile customs, but we're seeing the beginnings of it, all right, with Ephraim, the Northern Kingdom. Give me the book of Hosea, chapter 1 and verse 1. All right. So we're seeing the beginnings of us being called Gentiles, of how the Northern Kingdom began to be called Gentiles. Why? For the wickedness that they committed against their brethren, being confederate with Syria and going against them.
This is the book of Hosea, chapter 1, verse 1. The word of the Lord that came unto Hosea, the son of Beeri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel. The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, go, take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land have committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord.
So he told the prophet Hosea to take a wife of whoredom. Why? Because she represented the whoredoms that we committed against who? The Most High. All right. We went away from keeping God's laws. We kept the customs of the other nations. We wanted to be like the other nations. All right, read.
So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, which conceived and bare him a son. And the Lord said unto him, call his name Jezreel, for yet a little while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to seize the kingdom of the house of Israel.
And will what?
Cause to seize the kingdom of the house of Israel.
Will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. So we will no longer be a kingdom. The northern kingdom will no longer have a kingdom. Why? For the wickedness, for the whoredoms that we committed against the Most High. Read.
And it shall come to pass at that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, call her name Leruhamah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away.
So the Most High utterly took us away. How? Like we read in the book Black Indians, slave ships. We went into captivity by the hands of the other nations, the Assyrian king, Tiglath-Pileser. All right? Why? For committing whoredoms, wickedness in the eyes of the Most High. Read.
But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah.
He had mercy upon the southern kingdom. Why? Because they were keeping God's laws. All right? Read.
And will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen.
So the Most High allowed the northern kingdom to fall, the northern kingdom to go into captivity. For what? For the wickedness, the whoredoms that they committed, and going against who? The southern kingdom, separating themselves from the southern kingdom. Read.
Now, when she had weaned Leruhamah, she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, call his name Loami, for ye are not my people.
Read that again.
Then God said,
Read it again.
Then said God, call his name Loami, for ye are not my people.
For ye are what?
Not my people.
Read.
And I will not be your God.
So it's the same thing we read in the book of Isaiah chapter 7. Ye are not my people, and I will not be your God for the wickedness that you committed. All right. It started with the northern kingdom, but the southern kingdom as well fell. All right. Now today, that you see the circumstances that we're in, under the curses still. All right. Not calling ourselves Israelites, not keeping God's commandments, keeping the customs of the other nations. That's why we're called Gentiles to this day, meaning nations. Read.
Verse 10.
No, that was it. That was it. Give me the book of 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 1.
The book of 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 1. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to the strangers scattered.
To the who?
Strangers scattered.
To the strangers scattered. Who are those strangers scattered? The Israelites. How are we scattered? Slave ships, captivity. We were assimilated, taken into captivity by the other nations. All right, read.
Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia.
So we were called strangers, and we were scattered throughout the Greek nations. All right, Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Read. So this is how we know who the strangers are. Read verse 2.
Elect.
Who?
Elect.
Who are the elect? All right, because it's saying the strangers, and you say, oh, that's the other nations. That's the other people. This is why we are the Gentiles. You're not knowing that we're called Gentiles because we're no longer called Israelites. But the strangers here, the Gentiles here, okay, are the Israelites. Read Isaiah 45, verse 4.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 4. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, mine elect.
Who's the elect?
Israel, mine elect.
So when we read 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 2, that the elect is Israel. Israel is God's elect. No other nation, no other strange nation. God is not dealing with the other nations. He only deals with the house of Israel, the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Let's go back to 1 Peter.
1 Peter chapter 1, verse 2. Elect according to the foreknowledge of God the Father, through sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Jesus Christ. Grace unto you and peace be multiplied.
So the strangers here that Peter is addressing is the Israelites. All right. Why were they called strangers? Because they were no longer considered Jews. Israel. Why? There was a separation between the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. Give me the book of 1 Peter chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 7.
The book of 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 7. Unto you, therefore, which believe he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner, and a stone of stumbling, and a rock of offense.
That's what the Most High is. That's what this Bible is to our people caught up in Christianity. A stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. Why? Because you don't want to accept that you are the Israelites, all right? Scattered amongst the nations, amongst the Gentiles, keeping Gentile customs. Okay? Read.
And to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient.
Being what?
Disobedient. Whereunto also they were appointed.
Read.
But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood.
It says we were appointed to be disobedient. Why? Because there had to be a division, a separation amongst the southern kingdom and northern kingdom. But then God comes back and says what?
But ye are a chosen generation.
We are a chosen generation. Read.
A royal priesthood. And holy nation.
A holy nation. Read.
A peculiar people.
Read.
That ye should show forth the praises of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
So the Most High is calling us out of darkness. What darkness are we in today? Christianity. They don't teach you who the real Gentiles are. They don't go precept upon precept, line upon line. They don't go into the history to show you how we fell as a nation, separated, divided, and now we call ourselves bywords like Hispanic, Latin American, African American, Negro. All right? Read.
Verse 10. Which in time past were not a people.
In time past were what?
Not a people.
When we fell, we were no longer called the Israelites. We were not a people. This is talking about the northern kingdom of Israel. Read.
But are now the people of God.
But today, all 12 tribes are not called the people of God. But read it again.
Which in time past were not a people.
In time past, we were not a people, but what?
But are now the people of God.
Now we're waking up as the sons of God, teaching on the streets, on every corner. You cannot tell me that you don't know who the Israelites are, because we're everywhere, in every city. We're in almost all continents, in the major continents, Africa, all right, Europe, America, the Caribbean. You will see the Israelites teaching God's people who they truly are. The ones that you ignorantly call today blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Read.
Which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy.
We didn't have mercy, but now we have obtained mercy. Okay? Give me the book of Matthew, chapter 28 and verse 19.
The book of Matthew, chapter 28, verse 19. Go ye therefore and teach all nations.
You see, Christianity will tell you, see, Jesus Christ said, go into all nations. Read.
Baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost.
But is that really talking about all nations? Let's see why Jesus Christ said, go ye therefore and teach all nations. Give me the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 27. Let's see why Jesus Christ, the black Messiah, said teach all nations.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 27. And the Lord shall scatter you.
The Lord shall what?
Scatter you.
Scatter us, disperse us, displace us. Read.
Among the nations.
Among who?
The nations.
So you see why we had to go among and teach all nations, because we were scattered among the nations. It's very simple. Once you have the understanding, once you start keeping God's commandments, that wisdom will open up to you. But only the prophets of the Most High can teach you this. Your pastors in the Christian church will not teach you this. Why? Because he has been paid, all right? He is a traitor to his people. He cannot teach you who you are, or else he'll be going against what? His slave masters who have propped him up as a puppet to teach you lies, to teach you white man Jesus, all right? Give me the book of John, chapter 7, verse 35.
The book of John, chapter 7, verse 35. Then said the Jews among themselves.
The who?
The Jews among themselves.
Read.
Whither will he go, that we shall not find him?
So they wanted to know, where will Jesus Christ go that we will not find him? Read.
Will he go unto the dispersed?
Unto who?
The dispersed?
The scattered. Another word for dispersed is scattered. We just read who was scattered in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 27. It was the Israelites. Read.
Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles?
Among who?
The Gentiles?
The nations. Remember, he said, go and teach all nations. Why? Because, read that again.
Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles?
Among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles. Who was called Gentiles at this time? The Israelites, the northern kingdom, who were not a people. But we're reading that there was mercy now. Christ is on the scene. He's bringing back the northern kingdom and southern kingdom together, making them one nation once again. All right? Give me the book of James, chapter 1, verse 1. Who was the dispersed among the Gentiles? Let's see.
The book of James, chapter 1 and verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes.
To who?
The 12 tribes.
No, all nations.
The 12 tribes.
Read.
Which are scattered.
Which are what?
Scattered.
Dispersed. Displaced. Read.
Abroad.
Where?
Abroad.
Among the nations. That's why Jesus Christ had to go and teach the Gentiles. Be among the Gentiles. Why? Because the Israelites were there. Okay? He was teaching the Israelites. He wasn't teaching all nations. This word is not for everyone. It's for the Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, give me the book of Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 21.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 21. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy.
So he's talking to the southern kingdom here. All right, he will move them to jealousy with who?
With those which are not a people.
Who's that? Those which are not a people, the northern kingdom, who fell for what? For the whoredom that they committed, the wickedness that they committed. Read.
I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
With a foolish nation. Why? Because the northern kingdom decided to follow the customs of the Gentiles. All right? So the Most High provoked the southern kingdom to jealousy. He moved them to jealousy with the what? With those which are not a people. So these Israelites, the northern kingdom, weren't considered Israel anymore. They were called Gentiles or uncircumcision by who? By the circumcision or the southern kingdom. All right? Give me the book of Isaiah chapter 7 verse 8 once again to refresh our people's mind. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 21 says, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. Isaiah 7, verse 8.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 7, verse 8. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people.
You see that? So when it says, I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people, it's talking about the northern kingdom, Ephraim, Israel, okay? It's not talking about the other nations, all right? They cannot be saved. Salvation is only for Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. The Most High is only dealing with us, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, caught up in Christianity, all right? Give me the book of Isaiah, chapter 11 and verse 10.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 11 and verse 10. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people.
That root of Jesse is Jesus Christ, the black Messiah, all right? Read.
To it shall the Gentiles seek.
To it shall who seek?
The Gentiles seek.
The northern kingdom, who was called the Gentiles. Why? Because we were now displaced, dispersed, scattered among the Gentiles. Read.
And his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant.
The what?
The remnant of his people.
The remnant of his people. All right? The remnant, the Israelites. It's not talking about no other nation. Read.
Which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt.
So this now is telling you the nations where we were scattered amongst, all right?
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria.
From where?
From Assyria.
Assyria, which is Turkey. Read.
And from Egypt.
From what?
Egypt. And from Pathros.
Pathros is upper Egypt. Egypt is lower Egypt. Read.
And from Cush.
From Cush, Ethiopia.
And from Elam.
Elam, the East Indians and Iranians. Read.
And from Shinar.
Shinar is Iraq, modern day Iraq. Read.
And from Hamath.
Modern day Syria. So these are some of the nations which our people were scattered amongst. All right? Read.
And from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel.
You see that? So it's not talking about all nations. It's talking about who? Read it again.
The outcasts of Israel.
It's talking about the outcast, the remnant of his people, the outcast, the scattered, the dispersed of Israel. Read.
And gather together the dispersed of Judah.
There it is. Read.
From the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart.
The northern kingdom will not have envy anymore for Judah. All right, read.
And the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim.
So that division, that separation will no longer exist. All right? Why? Because Jesus Christ is now on the scene. Jesus Christ will now gather together the outcast, the remnant, the dispersed of his people, and make them one nation once again. All right? Give me the book of Matthew, chapter 4 and verse 13.
The book of Matthew, chapter 4, verse 13. And leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast, in the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali.
So Jesus Christ went to Capernaum, and who was there? The borders of Zebulun and Naphtali, two northern kingdom tribes, which we call today so-called Hispanics, Latin Americans. Read.
That it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet.
By Isaiah the prophet. Read.
Saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali.
Two tribes of the nation of Israel. Read.
By the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles.
Galilee of who?
The Gentiles.
Usually a non-Israelite people, but here it's calling the Israelites Gentiles. Okay? You getting the understanding? Are you getting the understanding? All right. Don't be fooled by your Christian pastors. All right. Read.
The people which sat in darkness.
They sat in darkness. Why? Because we were committing whoredom. We was committing wickedness in the eyes of the Most High. Read.
Saw great light.
Uh-huh.
And to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up.
Why? Because without Jesus Christ, we sat in darkness, but now there's mercy. Now we are being redeemed as it is this day. The Israelites are waking up. The 12 tribes of Israel are waking up, but by the hand of the Most High through his prophets, like Bishop Nathaniel, the deacons, the other bishops, Bishop Kanai, Bishop Yawasop, all right? Laboring in this truth to wake our people up out of the dunghills, the captivity that we are in, following the customs of the other nations, bringing back that our identity through the scriptures. The book of Zechariah, chapter 12 and verse 7. Read.
The book of Zechariah, chapter 12, verse 7. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first.
The Lord shall save the tents of Judah first. Who was the first ones teaching the truth that we are the Israelites? The so-called blacks, which their true name is the tribe of Judah. All right, read.
That the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah.
So that the other tribes don't magnify themselves, boast themselves against the tribe of Judah, the head tribe, Judah. All right, read.
In that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God.
So that was it. I wanted to show you that the tribe of Judah had to be raised first. Give me the book of Acts, chapter 13, verse 46.
The book of Acts, chapter 13,
verse 45.
And verse 45. But when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming.
So the southern kingdom, they didn't want to hear about Jesus Christ, the black Messiah, bringing the Gentiles in. All right? They were blaspheming, contradicting and blaspheming what Paul was teaching, which was Christ. Read.
Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of God should have been spoken to you.
Read it again.
It was necessary that the word of God should first have been spoken to you.
Why? Because we read in Zechariah chapter 12, verse 7, that he shall raise the tents of Judah first. Read.
But seeing ye put it from you.
But since Judah did not want to accept the teachings of Christ, read.
And judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life. Lo, we turn to the Gentiles.
We turn to who?
The Gentiles.
The northern kingdom, who was called the Gentiles by who? The southern kingdom. That's what we're learning. We're learning that who the real Gentiles are. So we're learning who the real Gentiles are in this through the scriptures. All right? It's talking about the northern kingdom. So now we're seeing that Paul and Barnabas, they said, oh, they're not accepting the word of the Most High. They're not accepting salvation through Jesus Christ. Now we must turn to the Gentiles. Now we must turn to the northern kingdom. All right? Give me the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 5.
The book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles.
Go not what?
Into the way of the Gentiles.
Remember, the northern kingdom are called the Gentiles by the southern kingdom. So Jesus Christ said, don't go into the way of the Gentiles. Read.
And into any city of the Samaritans.
Into who?
Any city of the Samaritans.
Who was in Samaria? Ephraim, the northern kingdom. Read.
Enter ye not.
So Jesus Christ, why? Because the doctrine, the salvation through Jesus Christ had to be first taught to the southern kingdom. But once they started to reject it, okay, the Sadducees and Pharisees, all right, Jesus Christ then started to teach who? The northern kingdom through Paul, through Peter, all right, Barnabas, all right. Give me the book of John, chapter 10 and verse 15.
The book of John, chapter 10, verse 15. As the Father knoweth me, even so know I the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep, and other sheep I have.
See, he says, I lay down my life for the sheep. Who is that sheep? The southern kingdom. But watch what he says. Read verse 16.
And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold.
So other sheep Jesus Christ had, which is who? The northern kingdom, the Gentiles. Why? Because they were not in Jerusalem. They were dispersed, as we read, all right, in 1 Peter's 1:1, amongst the Greeks. Read.
Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold.
One fold. There shall no longer be southern kingdom and northern kingdom divided. One fold, one kingdom. Read.
And there shall be one fold, and one shepherd.
One shepherd, Jesus Christ. All right, give me the book of John, chapter 11, verse 49.
John chapter 11, verse 49. And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, Ye know nothing at all.
So Caiaphas, he was beginning to have the understanding of who Jesus Christ was. Read.
Nor consider that is expedient for us, that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not.
So the Jews didn't understand that Jesus Christ was on the scene to what? Redeem all 12 tribes, not just the southern kingdom. So read that verse again.
Nor consider that is expedient for us, that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not.
So Christ had to die so that the whole nation did not perish. Read.
And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year.
So Caiaphas was the high priest that year. Read.
He prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation. And not for that nation only.
And not for the southern kingdom only. Read.
But that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad.
Who was scattered abroad? The northern kingdom, who were called Gentiles at this time. So read it again.
And not for that nation only, but for that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad.
So it wasn't only, salvation wasn't only for the Jews, it was for who? All 12 tribes. Jesus Christ had to die for all 12 tribes to be gathered once again. Okay? Give me Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 22. We're going to read the prophecy in the Old Testament.
The book of Ezekiel chapter 37 and verse 22. And I will make them one nation.
I will make them what?
One nation.
No longer southern kingdom and northern kingdom divided. Read.
In the land upon the mountains of Israel. And one king shall be king to them all.
That's Jesus Christ, the black Messiah. Read.
And they shall be no more two nations.
You see that? That's the prophecy that Caiaphas was prophesying about. That Jesus Christ had to die for what? For the nation to be one once again. Read.
Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all.
No longer southern kingdom and northern kingdom. No longer the Jews and the Gentiles. Read.
Neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places.
Out of all the places we were scattered, Jesus Christ will save us. Read.
Wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them, so shall they be my people, and I will be their God.
So we will be called God's people once again. Give me the book of Isaiah chapter 11, verse 10 again.
The book of Isaiah chapter 11, verse 10. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek.
So it shall who seek?
The Gentiles seek.
The northern kingdom. All right, that's what we were reading in the prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 22. Read.
And his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people.
The remnant of his people, Israel, the 12 tribes. Read.
Which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcast of Israel.
The outcast, the dispersed, the scattered of Israel. Read.
And gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart. The adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim.
All right. So we've learned today, brothers and sisters, all right, what Christianity has not taught you. All right, that the Gentiles, all right, are the Israelites. Okay. Many times it's talking about the northern kingdom. All right. But now we're still in the Gentile state of mind, following after Christianity, following after white Jesus. So now we have to start keeping God's commandments and come out of the Christian church if they will not teach you the truth of who you are and what you must do to have salvation, to get salvation. All right, brothers and sisters? So we pray that you were edified, all right, and continue to look for more episodes coming from the captains of what the Christian church has not taught us, all right? With that, we say shalom.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on IUIC TV. That's right, I said on IUIC TV. Download the app today. Shalom.
We used to scream Black Power while Heron was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission, minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.